Is tempera paint the same as gouache paint? They look alike, but do they behave the same? I'm trying my gouache techniques on a portrait, but with tempera paint. Hey, bonjour, I'm Cécile, a French artist, and my mission is to help you becoming a better artist. Today, I want to test in real life what is tempera painting. I've already made a video about tempera basics, and now I want to test it in real life with a large painting, as I would do with gouache in my A4 sketchbook. So watch me along and I will tell you what are the differences between gouache and tempera. I don't pretend to know everything, but this is what I've been testing myself, so I can tell you how it behaves differently or not from gouache painting. So I made my drawing in my watercolor sketchbook. It's A4 size and I want to place a primer. This is the best primer I have. It's Michael Harding. It's Gesso, yes, but it's a very good Gesso. Just because I want to try the Tempera on a Gesso background. So I've made my drawing with HB pencil, so I can still see it under the gesso. If it's too light, it won't be visible. And I like to have some textures in my background, so I'm not really precious about the way I apply the gesso. Let this dry very well and clean your brush right away, because gesso is a nightmare to clean once it's dry. And when your gesso is dry, I want to place a light wash of red, just to see if the tempera paint is behaving just like gouache, and if I can't really wash it down. And as there is a layer of gesso below, it's kind of behaving strangely, but that's okay. Just want to give it a bit of textures. Placing a bit more paint where I see it is outside of the clothes. Also here in the neck, under the neck. Placing a colored wash under my painting is something I do frequently with gouache. And here it behaves a bit differently, but I think it's maybe because I have placed a gesso layer under my wash painting. So it's quite difficult to say if it's different than from gouache, because I usually don't place gesso under my gouache. And for the hair, I will use the Bistro color. It's a dark brown. And I will be using a sponge. And go for it. So it's not precise, as you can tell. It's more a suggestion of the hair. And I can still be more precise with a brush later. I've mixed my brown, which is not so brown, by the way, with blue to darken it. Using a piece of sponge to create a texture for curly hair is something that writes very well with acrylic, with gouache, and with tempera as well, because as long as you have a thick medium, you can use the texture of the sponge to create something really interesting. The only difference I see with gouache is that once it's dry, the sponge is really hard, almost hard like acrylic. So it's something you may want to think about, is to wash your tools, brushes, etc. with tempera as soon as possible, because otherwise you may have surprises. This is still fresh, so I can incorporate the color of the hair to make kind of a shadow here. So tempera paint needs to be a bit more hydrated than gouache. It's a bit more sticky. If I can say so, I would say that the tempera paint is thirsty, really thirsty. It requires to have a lot of water, much more than gouache actually. I would say that my painting style is not so blended. It's more patches of colors, but I need to have two adjacent colors that have a border that is slightly blended. And here with tempera paint, it's not as easy as it is with gouache. When it comes to blending, it's really easier to blend with tempera when the paint is fresh. I mean within seconds when you apply it. When I'm making blending with gouache, I can slightly reactivate the layer under the one I am applying, maybe an hour or even days after, so that's not a problem. With tempera, it's drying really hard and it's very difficult to reactivate the layer under, so it may fit very well for some styles and not so well for others. If you are a heavy blender, so to speak, not sure that tempera is really fitting for you. A technique I use a lot with gouache is to wet my finger in clean water and rub gently the color I just applied, so I can have something a bit blurry. Let's try this with tempera. I'm using a regular white for mixing, it's not a titanium, and it's really opaque. I would say that the coverage of the tempera is higher than the one in gouache. So all in all, I would say that gouache painting and tempera painting are quite alike. The main difference I can tell is that blending is not easy as it is with gouache when you are using tempera, unless you are very quick. That's the first thing. And second thing, it's really drying very hard. So you need to clean your brushes and palette very quickly. Otherwise, you will have little pieces of stone. And third thing, it applies as well on the tubes. If you don't clean very well the tip of the tube, it will make a mess. Cool. This is happening on the edge of the tube. It's drying like stone. But besides this, I think it's almost the same actually. So I don't think it's worth it if you already have a set of gouache painting. I'm not sure it's really necessary for you to buy tempera painting because you won't find too much difference. But if you want to try, you can buy either one of both. They behave quite the same. And you have all the tempera basics in this video here. See you soon. Bye bye. Au revoir.